Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Maria Taylor, and I'm with my colleague Chris Sheehan, whom I'm sure many of you will know, and we're both the International Directors of Training at CPI. We've also got another colleague with us today, Alison Lawton, who is going to be moderating the Q&A in the chat box for us. It's great to see so many of you here today, and we know that I think the last count there are about 380 of you that have signed up for this event, so you're more than welcome. We know that our certified instructors are always really supportive of CPI, and we really appreciate that you've given up your time today, which we know is really incredibly valuable, to hear about the revisions that we've made to our programmes. We're really excited about launching the new edition, and I know that our GPIs are itching to start using and teaching the new materials with you, and we hope that after today you will be too. Okay, so let's just take a moment to look at the questions that we're going to be hoping that today's webinar will answer for you. As you're aware, we're launching the second edition version of our programmes on the 12th of April. So I'm going to start off with what those revisions are and why we've made them. And then Chris will move on to discussing how the changes might affect you as a certified instructor and how you can transition across to using the new content and materials over the next 12 months. Excuse me, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. So if you have any, please use the Q&A box rather than the chat box so that we can keep them all in one place. As there are a lot of participants on this event, Alison will group any questions with common themes together so that we can make the best use of our time and get through as many questions as possible. Hopefully, though, we'll have answered most of the questions that you already have by the time we get to the end of the presentation. However, before we look at why we've made the revisions to the programmes, we wanted to recognise that some of you might be feeling a little bit concerned about any changes that we've made. We appreciate that for most of you, delivering CPI training isn't your primary role. And over the past year, you've had to be extremely adaptable in your day jobs to cope with the pandemic, as well as to try and deliver the training in the best way that you can, and sometimes having to use unfamiliar technology. So for some of you at the moment, more changes to the training and delivery methods that we use and the content might seem like the last thing that you need right now. However, we do live in an ever-changing world, and the last year in the pandemic has shown us how rapid that change can be. Research into human behaviour and its impact on crisis situations is constantly evolving, and CPI need to be at the forefront of that research. Our programmes therefore need to reflect the research so that you and your colleagues can provide the best care, welfare, safety and security to the people in your care. We've listened and responded to customer feedback, and at CPI we have to challenge ourselves to evolve and grow. So for CPI to support you to provide the best care, welfare, safety and security, we need to make adjustments to our programmes when we feel it's in the best interest of helping others. It's impossible for us to stay still, and as the world changes and shifts, so must our programmes. However, we just want to reassure you that you won't see any radical changes to the programmes. There are adjustments, enhancements and improvements which are designed to be evolutionary and not revolutionary. So with that said, let's look at some of those revisions and why we've made them. I'm going to start with the programme titles. So there will be 4 programmes available: Verbal Intervention, Safety Intervention Foundation, Safety Intervention Advanced, and Safety Interventions Advanced and Emergency. So there's no prizes for guessing what the immediate change is, that none of them contain the name MAPA. So MAPA, Managing Actual and Potential Aggression, was the name suggested by the Royal College of Nursing to Chris Sterling and Albert McHugh many years ago when they designed the original programme. Since then, opinions and practices around the use of restraint have evolved. CPI created a restraint reduction network and has supported the development of the RRN standards. Training standards now emphasise the need for de-escalation skills and the use of non-restrictive interventions to maximise safety and minimise harm. So in today's climate, we felt that having the term aggression in the programme title is no longer relevant, as the content is now very much more than managing actual or potential aggression. Of course, our programmes will continue to support you and your staff in having the appropriate skills to manage those crisis situations, but we wanted our programme titles to better reflect their current content and the current climate. So MAPA Foundation is now called Safety Intervention Foundation, and MAPA Advanced is now called Safety Intervention Advanced and Emergency. For those of you that are pivotal MAPA instructors and wondering what's happened to that programme, most of the key concepts that were in pivotal MAPA, because they were so good, have now been included in all the programmes. So you will see that the importance of consistent, calm staff responses has been introduced as an approach to de-escalate distressed and crisis behaviour. And the verbal intervention unit has been designed to strengthen staff responses through the use of verbal scripts, fail-safe choices, and how to plan and conduct a difficult conversation. Customers have told us that they like attending programmes where other participants are from a similar sector or working environment, and we achieved that to some extent with Pivotal MAPA. So we've now developed this further, and Safety Intervention Foundation has two versions. You will be able to attend an event that is either aimed at those who work with adults or those who work with children and young people. The content is exactly the same, with the exception of small children's holds included in the Working with Children and Young People version. But the programme content contains sector-specific materials such as case studies, videos, and the workbooks will contain pictures of adults or children and young people. Chris is going to explain to you later how you can transition over to these programmes. So you will have seen on the previous slide that there were a couple of programme titles that I didn't mention, Verbal Intervention and Safety Intervention Advanced. So whilst we do have two new programme titles, the content included in these programmes is not new. Verbal Intervention has the same content as Safety Intervention Foundation, just without any physical skills. And as I said on my previous slide, the Advanced MAPA programme has now become Advanced and Emergency, and Safety Interventions Advanced includes all the content from Advanced and Emergency, but has less physical skills included. We've done this to ensure that they're a better fit with the risk-based training model. We've always provided a risk-based training model which enables us to offer different content to end learners who have different requirements based on the job they do and the risks that they face. Schools, for example, many schools don't require the use of physical skills, therefore they would only deliver units 1 to 7 and 10. But certified instructors would have to attend ICPs and renewals where all these skills were taught. Taking this risk-based approach gives customers greater choice about who gets what, and the separation of content into 4 programmes makes it much clearer and more time efficient for certified instructors, and end users only then get to see the materials that are relevant to the skills that they need. Just as an aside, I haven't mentioned Prevention First on this slide because it's not a new programme. And if that's something that you want more information about, then contact your account manager. And further into the presentation, I will go into further detail about the content of each programme. Okay, so we've covered why we've changed the programme names and have introduced a wider choice of offerings. So let's move on to the rationale behind some of the other revisions. I've already mentioned that it's important that we keep up to date and align ourselves with the latest evidence and research. So let's take a moment to look at what that's saying. We're learning more and more about what science calls the amygdala hijack. This is when our emotional brain takes over our rational thinking, and we know that this happens to the person in distress as well as to the staff in crisis situations. Understanding the why and the how behind this is crucial for effective interventions. The definition of trauma has expanded, and research is now telling us that huge numbers of us have experienced trauma in our lives. This means, as staff, we need to be more aware of the impacts of trauma more than ever in order to effectively support those in our care. As a result, trauma is now incorporated throughout the programmes. The online content has a specific trauma module. Trauma considerations that staff need to make are emphasised and linked to the key models. So, for example, learners are shown how the crisis development model can be used to recognise potential trauma-related behaviour and how trauma-sensitive approaches can be used to de-escalate effectively. Research around the use of restrictive practices have highlighted the risk of psychosocial damage and re-traumatisation. To recognise this, the staff approach at the risk level of crisis development model is now to use safety interventions rather than physical intervention. Safety interventions have been divided into non-restrictive and restrictive interventions, which reinforces that intervention at this level does not have to include a physical intervention. At CPI, we listen to our customers, and as a response to some of that feedback we have received, one of the main aims of the programme revisions was to achieve a turnkey approach. I've already said that we recognise that for most of you, training delivery is not your primary role, and you need to maximise your training time and make it as impactful as possible. Customers have said that they want a reliable product that's easy to access and teach, and then learn and apply back in the workplace. In order to achieve this, we have to understand our learners' needs. We need to structure our training around effective adult learning and how that learning transfers to the workplace. And we need to provide programs, resources, and content that meet the needs of learners so they gain the essential knowledge and skills for their role. We know that our customers operate in a highly regulated environment and want to show a clear return on their investment. So our programs must show impact. Well-trained staff should equal fewer incidents, which therefore results in a reduction in lost time in either managing and following up incidents or staff absence, all of which have better outcomes for service users. Once you've seen the revised programmes and used the new materials, I'm sure that you will agree that they are now simpler to access and teach, and the content is easier for your staff to learn and apply. Over the next couple of slides, I'm just going to go into more detail about how we've tried to achieve this. So we're determined to better understand the adult learner and provide the programmes, resources and contents to meet their needs. We know that adult learners need structure. The crisis development model has always been the foundation and the structure of our programme. And in one of the revisions we've made is to make it more explicit to help learners make connections and better understand the overall organisation of the programme. This will ensure that they understand the big picture and what we want to accomplish. By making the crisis development model structure more explicit, we're giving the learner an easy to follow roadmap. We've also moved the integrated experience forward in the programme to Module 2 and included precipitating factors, fear and anxiety, and rational detachment content into the module. This is to ensure a greater emphasis on our roles as staff and the impact that we have on a crisis situation. Also aligns with the latest research in social and emotional awareness. And as that is one of the changes that you will see that we've moved some of the existing content and concepts around in the programmes so that there is a better flow to the overall programme. We've simplified our language to make it easier for all learners. Some of the language that we previously used had a tendency to confuse the learner. So, for example, changing terms such as proxemics to personal space allows the learner to remember the concept rather than trying to remember the terminology associated with it. We've also aligned our online training to adult learning principles as well. A goal of the turnkey approach is to make the programme as easy to teach as possible. So we've redesigned the instructor guide, the electronic presentation and the workbook to work in conjunction with one another to make training easier and learning easier. So when you take a look at the instructor guide, you will see that it's in two halves, giving you the option to teach a blended version of the programme as well as a traditional classroom model. We have made the language in the instructor guide easy to follow so that you can actually, if you want to, use the guide to train from. We've also embedded technology into the training to maximise learning, but also to take the burden off of you as a certified instructor. One of the advantages of online learning is that it's easier to control the message and make sure that it's consistent. One of the downfalls is that it can often be impersonal, academic, and doesn't engage the learner. And we've all done that online training where we've just clicked through really, really quickly and tried to answer the test questions at the end. We've created, therefore, a new online format that makes it more personal. The resources and materials will make it easier to be more consistent with the classroom training. We've included videos and multimedia resources to enhance the learning and the interactivity of the training. And I've already said that they will include sector-specific case studies and scenarios. We've made a smooth and consistent programme across multiple learning platforms, which is designed to give you as a certified instructor more options to deliver the content back to your staff in your workplace. And Chris will look at these options with you later. Okay. So as well as enhancements, improvements to the programme content, we've also made some changes to the way programmes are going to be delivered. The biggest change we are making is in relation to ICPs and renewals. So we're moving from the traditional face-to-face classroom programmes to a blended learning approach, which combines online learning with traditional in-person face-to-face classroom-based learning. And although that's actually not new because we had to introduce this approach during the pandemic so that we could continue to deliver training. But this is actually the first time that all the materials have been developed with a blended approach in mind. And the new approach is very simple. So virtual learning is where we make use of technology with learners accessing content online through online courses. It could also include webinars like this, live virtual classrooms and coaching sessions. This enables learners to learn at their own pace and to gain the necessary knowledge that they need about a topic. It also enables us to manage the fidelity of the content. Using a virtual approach allows us to use the knowledge, skills and experiences of subject matter experts to determine what learners need to know, meaning that you as a certified instructor don't have to be a content expert. Building and managing the content virtually minimises training drift because every learner goes through the same content in the same way, avoiding the variances created by an instructor. It also means that we can create a rich learning experience by including video content as well as the voice of people with a lived experience, which is so important. Technology also means that we can quickly update content so that there is a short time lag between new content and the learner getting hold of that content. In-person classroom-based traditional learning is the approach that CPI have always used and is the approach that many of us are familiar with and probably this time last year were very, very much more comfortable with. We turn up to a venue, have an instructor teach us about the topic and show us how to implement the new knowledge. Blended learning is simply a combination of both approaches. So our ICPs and renewals will now include online learning, followed up with a classroom session, which will either be face-to-face or virtual, depending on the programme. Another benefit of a blended approach is the efficiency and time savings that it generates. We know that our customers have time pressures and it's a challenge to release staff for training. So taking a blended approach means that participants will now complete the online course in order to gain the underpinning knowledge before coming into a classroom. That classroom event, as I said, may be a live virtual class or a live face-to-face, where they will apply this knowledge, therefore turning the what which is the knowledge, into the how, which is the application back in the workplace. Flexible delivery choices and the option of blended learning saves the customer approximately 20 to 25% in time compared to traditional teaching time. So during these last few slides, I'm just going to show you an overview of the contents of each of the programs. So verbal intervention contains 6 modules. We've got the crisis development model, the integrated experience, which, as I said earlier, now includes precipitating factors, fear and anxiety, and rational detachment. Module 3 is communication skills, which includes verbal, paraverbal, non-verbal communication and a supportive stance. Module 4 is responding to defensive behaviours, which includes the verbal escalation continuum, using verbal scripts, fail-safe choices, planning and conducting difficult conversations, as well as limit setting. Safety interventions is a new module which emphasises the use of non-restrictive approaches and includes collaborative and coordinating approaches amongst staff. The Module 6, the post-crisis module, is the same as it is in MAPA, focusing on tension reduction and how to re-establish the relationship after a crisis, but also now includes a greater emphasis on trauma considerations that staff need to make and restorative approaches. So VI is our foundation, our base model of content, and every other programme builds on that content. So for safety interventions foundation, module 5 adds in the legal and professional issues relating to the use of disengagements and teaching disengagements as well. Module 6 introduces the concept of restrictive physical interventions as an approach that can be considered reasonable and proportionate as an approach to risk behaviours when there's an imminent or immediate risk of harm and where non-restrictive safety interventions have already been ineffective. Module 7 explores the decision-making matrix, and we highlight in the instructor guide that if you're teaching any disengagements or any holding, you need to teach Module 7 before you teach Module 5. Module 8 teaches the holding skills, and Module 9 has the same post-crisis content as Module 6 in VI. Moving on to Safety Interventions Advance. The content in Module 7 in decision making is added to with the inclusion of the Brosset checklist. Disengagement skills are expanded to include the high risk neck hold, and holding skills are expanded to include the use of a third person in a standing and seated holds, team interventions, and transitions and slips and trips to the floor. Unit 9 post-crisis is expanded by the inclusion of the IBERA post-crisis debriefing tool. And then lastly, advanced and emergency. Module 7 is expanded to include the assessing extreme risk. Disengagement skills now include all the emergency responses, and holding skills are expanded to include emergency team interventions, emergency floor holding, rapid tranquilization, entry and exit to seclusion, and the search and removal of unsafe items. So for me, that was a whistle-stop tour of some of the improvements and enhancements that we've made to the programme. And I'll now hand you over to Chris to talk about how that will impact you and how you might transition over to the new programmes. So just bear with me a second. Okay. So I'm sure Chris will stop sharing his screen and start sharing his screen with you shortly.
Good morning, everybody. Can I just check that my screen can be seen?
I can see your screen, Chris.
We can
Okay,
see your screen too. We can't see you though, Chris.
You can't see me. How about that?
There you go. We can see you now.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending the webinar. I was just having a look at the participant list and seeing how many very, very familiar names are on the list. So thank you all for coming. I wish we could see you in person, but that time will certainly come to us again very, very soon, I believe. I want to look at, thank you, Maria, for leading on the webinar. I appreciate that. And I will attempt to build on some of the information that Maria has given you so far. Really want to look at what are the impacts. And, you know, I want to alleviate any concern immediately by saying that the impact is minimal. And I'll talk you through your options for a short time. So, the launch of verbal intervention and safety interventions is on the 12th of April this year. But that doesn't mean that there's a hard line drawn in the sand. It's quite the contrary. The resources for verbal intervention and safety interventions are available now. So from this webinar on, you will be able to go into the My Instructor portion of the website so that you can go there and review and even download a copy of the materials. As we're talking about materials, if you have MAPA resources in stock, then continue to use your MAPA resources until your supplies run out. There's no hard and fast rule, and that really is the message I wanted to get across to people. If you wish to continue using your resources, then you can introduce some of the concepts that Maria has already highlighted from safety interventions into your MAPA program. For example, you can start to introduce the non-restrictive and the restrictive interventions on level 3 of the crisis development model. And that really is quite acceptable. I, in fact, would encourage you to do that. I would advise, though, if you're continuing to use MAPA materials, your current materials, then stick with the MAPA PowerPoint as well to keep the experience, the learning experience, clear and uncluttered. If you don't have a supply of MAPA resources and you're ready to order training resources, then you can purchase verbal intervention and safety intervention resources from the launch, and you will be able to get a hard copy instructor guide along with that order. So what does that mean? Well, it means from the 12th of April, all currently licensed certified instructors are immediately qualified to teach these programs. There's no special renewal required. And with our new materials, it should be easy enough to pick up and teach. I think I personally am very, very proud of our current materials that we've produced for the introduction of safety interventions. You will then have the option of delivering these programs using a blended method, or of course, you can stick to the traditional classroom model as well, as Maria has highlighted for you. What we do want you to do, though, is to decide on the delivery method that best suits your organization. We have listened to you as certified instructors and your organizations for some time who have been asking for other delivery methods. So we have moved on and tried to address some of those questions that we've been asked over the year. I will speak to some of these different options in a while. What is the impact for end learners, the people that you teach as certified instructors? It's important to be mindful of the impact on these people. So I wanted to focus on this before going into more detail from a certified instructor point of view. The end learner resources are easier to use. The workbooks are more activity-based and reflective, not only on new learning, but on identifying personal strengths and areas that individuals might need to focus on when back in the workplace. We've added some additional content by the inclusion of up-to-date articles to enhance those learnings. So you will find at the end of each module within the workbook, we've actually included and printed into the workbook some most up-to-date and current articles that are relevant to those topics. Video content is used to enrich all online learning components. And as Marie said earlier, the language has been greatly simplified, again, based on your feedback. So over the transition period, which will happen over the next 12 months, we've put together a transition document. This document is now available. We will be emailing this out to all participants on the program, and probably to all certified instructors over a short period of time. We'll also upload it to the My Instructor portion of the website, so it will be there as a resource for you. Remember Advice is also always available from customer supports on accessing resources. Where are they? How can I review them, etc., etc. Program documentation, content and delivery, and the training team are available to take calls at any time in relation to content and delivery questions. We're here to help when necessary. And of course, not to forget the in-person support when you attend your next renewal, which we're all looking forward to. As Maria said, it's simple to access, teach, learn, and apply. We wanted you, the certified instructor, to be able to pick it up and go and deliver the program immediately from the 12th, confident that CPI have done all the heavy lifting. So it makes it as easy as possible for you to deliver. Maria has spoken about the delivery options. With verbal interventions and safety interventions, we've looked at our delivery methods and designed the program with 3 different pathways. Maria's already spoken in detail on those, but I just wanted to quickly point out the use of these different delivery methods can help to be more efficient with time. Something to consider for your onward delivery, but also to progress your conversations with your organizations, particularly those that are time bound, particularly in the current COVID-19 time. So just some things for you to consider there. If, however, you wish to deliver a full in-class training, then this is still an available option. We're certainly not taking that away from you. The new instructor guide, workbooks and PowerPoints are designed and written in a way that allows for all of the delivery methods that Maria has spoken to in detail at the earlier part of the webinar. So what I wanted to do was to look at what does the instructor guide look like for you? How does it work? The instructor guide is written with a 3-step teaching sequence of content, activity, and then summary of each module. This will become very familiar as you progress through the program modules. Each module will start with an overview page, which includes the learning objectives, the materials you will need to teach that module, things that you might need to prepare before teaching, before arriving in the classroom. It also includes suggested timings to teach each of the modules. One of the things that I think we have made better connections with the module learning to workbook pages and the relevant presentation slides. Easier connections for you as a certified instructor so that you don't have to search for where am I at or wonder what page in the workbook the learner is on. Let's just look at these in a bit more detail. So when we speak to the module structure particularly around content, this is a quick snapshot of how these 3 pieces of teaching sequence are laid out in the instructor guide. Each module will begin with the content section. In that section, you will find all of the terms, definitions, and examples needed to understand the content. All of you certified instructors will understand term definition, my example, your example, as the declarative teaching formula. So that hasn't changed. Notice that in the instructor guide, you will see a screenshot of the electronic presentation slide, a picture of the workbook page that the learners will be using, and a sample script. It is just a sample script. Feel free to tweak the script and to allow your personality to come through. Make it meaningful for you, make it meaningful for your organization. So make sure that your examples are very, very relevant to the people that you're teaching. Within each content section, you will find shaded boxes. Maria's already mentioned trauma-informed care. These shaded boxes highlight connections to specific trauma-related content to enhance your colleagues' learning. There are optional training opportunities that can be used to help your staff better understand how to support those in our care who may have had a traumatic past. Not essential to include them, that's why they're in the shaded boxes. They're easy to find and easy to integrate into your program. The second element of the teaching sequence is activities. Activities are specifically designed to reinforce the content and help your learners develop the necessary skills to intervene safely in a crisis moment. Notice that each activity has the purpose clearly identified, as well as what you need to do to set up the activity, including easy to follow step-by-step guidance for each activity. I would say that you can literally pick up the instructor guide and teach straight from the instructor guide. It is laid out in that step-by-step structure. As part of the activity structure, knowledge check questions are placed throughout the program to check the progress of the group's learning and the understanding. So we're not waiting for that final check at the end of the program. We're consistently checking knowledge and understanding as we progress throughout the program. The third element of the teaching sequence. At the end of each module, you will find the summary, complete with activities for points to remember and key takeaways. And the workbook is actually laid out in this way too. The course and materials are designed to help the certified instructor ensure that different learning styles are used to maximize the learning of your staff. So the electronic presentation, instructor guide, and the participant workbook are all designed to work together seamlessly to enhance the learning experience, but also to make your job easier. Most of the work has already been done, but with that said, as you know, being certified instructors, some preparation is always necessary to help you prepare for the class. That's still going to be necessary in order to make the content as engaging and as relevant as possible for your learners. So while I've said you can literally pick it up and teach from the instructor guide, do take some time to familiarize yourself with the instructor guide workbook and presentation, and make sure that you're feeling comfortable with it before that first delivery. So I wanted to look at renewal pathways, what the next 12 months will look like for you as certified instructors, but also highlight a couple of the beneficial changes as well. So when we start to look at the renewal process, specifically for the next 12 months, those of you who are certified to teach Foundation MAPA will know the current renewal process. But from the 12th of April 2021, this year, you can teach Safety Interventions Foundation. There's no renewal requirement. You do not have to wait until you attend a renewal. From the 12th of April, you can immediately start to teach Safety Interventions. But as I've said earlier, if you have a supply of MAPA materials and resources, continue to use and teach the MAPA program. However, your renewal this year and for the next 12 months will be a blended program. The renewal will have a 4-hour online element and a 1-day in classroom. After that, your certification will change and you will then become a certified instructor of safety interventions foundation level. As a foundation level certified instructor, you are also certified to deliver the verbal intervention program. As Maria explained earlier, the verbal intervention program, same as safety interventions, but with no disengagements and or holding as part of the program. Those of you certified to teach the advanced MAPA program currently, you can continue to teach the advanced content. You can even continue to teach it in conjunction with the Safety Interventions Foundation program. Your renewal this year will be, again, a blended program. It will include 4 hours online and 4 days in class, which will certify you to deliver safety interventions, advanced and emergency. So that's what the next 12 months looks like. But I also wanted to touch in with what will it look like from 2022 onwards. Well, from 2022 onwards, the MAPA renewal will no longer exist, and you will all now be Safety Intervention Instructors Foundation or a Safety Intervention Instructors Advanced or Advanced and Emergency Instructors. In 2022, if your training needs analysis indicates to you in your organization that you no longer need the emergency content of the Advanced and Emergency license, then you can drop your certification to Safety Interventions Advanced. By doing so, you also decrease the length of your renewal from 2022 onwards. So from 2022 onwards, Safety Intervention Advanced Instructor Renewal will be a 4-hour online content with only 2 days in class. However, I would say to you, absolutely listen to what your training needs analysis indicates and what your organization feels they want and where they're at for your service users, your customers, your end users. Be mindful, however, that if you do drop to Safety Interventions Advanced and you later feel that you need to have the emergency skills, you will have to recertify in Safety Interventions Advanced and Emergency. I beg your pardon. But you know what, that can be done. So don't worry about that. And we can talk you through that process if that ever needed to happen. Remember, all program resources are available to review and download on the My Account portion of the website. I know I keep saying that, but I just want to remind you that, you know, look, I've been a certified instructor, I've been a global professional instructor, and I know everybody is anxious to feel it, see it, sense it. So I'm just reminding you that you can absolutely do that from this webinar onwards today. Finally, because I don't want to continue on too long, and I want to give you some time to answer questions as well. The instructor guide, as I've said earlier, will guide you through delivering the program to your colleagues in your workplace. I did want to mention, however, as well, we have put together templates for initial training that will help you around timings and delivery sequence, etc. The refresher training templates will be available on the My Account portion of the website. So you are starting to hear, I hope, how important the My Account portion of the website is going to become to you as a one-stop shop for resources as we move forward. I did, however, also want to mention that as per the RRN standards, refresher training should be completed on an annual basis for any program containing physical interventions, as you all would know. The final thing that I just wanted to mention to you as a collective is just to be aware that there are further supports available through CPI in relation to RRN affiliation. Separate webinars have been done to speak to that topic and to speak to that matter. But remember that you can always ring customer supports And finally, I'm aware that we're also doing call outs. Some of our GPIs are calling out to organizations just to check in to see if any assistance or help is needed in relation to that RRN affiliation. So that brings me to the end of the pieces that I've been asked to speak on. I hope it's been helpful. And what we will do is move to the Ask the Panel portion. So Alison, maybe over to you to indicate to us questions that have come in, maybe?
Yes, do you want to pop your video on as well, Maria, and we can look at these together? Quite a lot of the questions that have come in so far are based around workbooks. So I know you've covered that in what you were saying, Chris, but it might be worth reiterating just around the whether people have unused workbooks, what do they do with those, or whether they carry on until they order new ones, that kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely. If you've got a stock of MAPA workbooks, please continue to use the MAPA workbooks. The one thing that I would mention to you is if you're using the MAPA workbook, use the resources that match that workbook. So stick with that instructor guide and stick with the PowerPoint that matches that program. But Maria earlier highlighted areas within each module, how we have moved some of the information around. She spoke to how she brought some of those really wonderful pieces from Pivotal MAPA into safety interventions. So you can start adding those smaller pieces into the MAPA training from the get-go. So don't panic about having MAPA resources and MAPA materials. The program has not changed essentially so dramatically that you cannot continue to use those resources.
Because there's a question from Jake as well. My primary role is deputy manager. Would this mean documentation and care plans that references MAPA would need changing? So I suppose that's a similar sort of answer. In that eventually, yes.
The language around the use of holds, the levels, the types of holds, none of that has changed. So I wouldn't envisage that you would need to adapt your care plans at all.
And I think the only thing I would add to that, Maria, is, yeah, don't panic about it. And as you're updating them over the next 12, 18, 24 months, then you can start to move. You remove MAPA and replace it with Safety Interventions Foundation, etc. But I absolutely would not think it's an emergency thing to do, or it's an essential thing to do currently.
And again, I think you may have covered this already, but can the workbooks be accessed online instead of being posted out?
You know, I did see that question before I started talking, and you will have access in the My Account portion, certainly, to review the workbooks and the instructor guides. I think, I don't know if I have the absolute answer to that, whether they would be able to use a downloaded version of the workbook to share with their staff that they're training and who are doing the online portion. The immediate thing that comes to mind for me is the blue card access and the unique identifying number. But what I would say is, please leave that with us, and we in the training and the development department will have a discussion about that, and we can get something out through you, Alison, maybe to update people on that question.
Okay. There's a question around Welsh translations. Are we able to answer that question? When will they be available?
Welsh translations. That's a good question. It's an excellent question for anybody living in Wales, I would suggest. However, I don't have an absolute response to that, but our Welsh instructors know that we have worked with them to get those translations done as quickly as possible. I don't want to set a false expectation or put a time frame around that, but we do know that's an essential piece of work, and it is on our radar. So please bear with us as we place ourselves in a position to be able to make sure that those resources are available to not only Wales, but any of our other international certified instructors who might be on the webinar today as well.
Okay, question from Angela. Will the instructor guide be adult or child or young person specific?
It is, yes. We have two versions of it. So for safety interventions, there will be a working with children version and a working with adults version.
Okay, and Jason's asked about RRN affiliation, but as you said, Chris, we have separate webinars around that we can add links to in the email when we send out the recording of this one, if people are interested in that. So we could, that's a kind of separate area that we can cover with that.
And I guess I would say, if you haven't heard from us, if your organisation haven't had a call from us in the last, 2 weeks, Marie, I want to say, then ring our quality and validation department and start having that discussion with them, and because they have a whole process that will help you through that affiliation application piece.
And on the similar sort of lines, have any other resources been updated to meet RRN standards, i.e. attendance sheets and competencies?
So all the assessment sheets have been updated. The introduction of the trauma module on the online portion meets a lot of the requirements for RRN. So we will still have a supplement, a participant supplement and a workbook supplement, but that will be much smaller now because we've incorporated many of the standards into the actual main content of the programs.
Okay. I think there's a couple of people trying to get onto the online resources currently, and they're having some trouble. Are they meant to be live now? In which case we can raise that with our technical teams and check that they're getting the right information.
Certainly, and by my knowledge, Maria, you might be able to add to this. By my knowledge, they are available now. I guess what I would say is, you know, it's not like there's thousands of people trying to log in there at one time, but maybe quite a few people have just gone straight to check the My account. If you try again in 5 or 10 minutes and you're still having an issue, I'd recommend that you're in quality and validation, and they will certainly that team will be able to help you out with accessing those materials. I am correct, Maria. They are available from today.
This week they should have been, so yeah, they should be.
Yeah.
Okay. How frequently do participants doing only verbal interventions need to be renewed? Is it also 1 year or longer, from Michelle?
Oh, good question. If you only have a verbal intervention license, so like I said, from advanced and emergency, you step down just into having the advanced license. You can also do the same around safety interventions. You can step down and just have the verbal interventions license. You lose your certification to teach disengagements and holding. But if your organization only needs the de-escalatory portion of the program, you can do that. And the renewal process is all online. So it's a 4-hour online self-directed learning. And then there's a virtual online portion where you will attend a class with one of our GPIs.
Okay, there's a few questions.
That's 2 years. Sorry, I think the question was how often. Sorry, it's every 2 years for verbal interventions. Sorry, the brain catches up slowly. What can I say?
And then there's a few questions around CH3 and whether or not there are any changes to that program.
CH3 license stands as it currently is. So please continue to teach the CH3 program in class. You can use it as consultancy, as you know, to add in some of the skills into safety interventions foundation or advanced and emergency. There will be no changes to that program for this year. It is on our list to look at updating that program, but it is still available, and the resources are available exactly as you are familiar with them for right now.
Okay, my renewal wasn't due until July 2022. Will I need to change or renew by April 2022 instead?
It's not due until July 2022. Is that? No, your renewal cycle is your renewal cycle. So if it is July 2022, then that is when you will attend your renewal. And please don't be worried about that. Please go and review the safety intervention resources. See how easy it will be for you to teach and deliver that program. And you know what, if you feel like you want to do an earlier renewal, then speak to your account manager. Just if you feel, you know, I want to come, I want to see it, I want to speak to a GPI, then absolutely that can be arranged. Just speak to your account manager in the sales department.
Okay, I'm just conscious of time, but I think we might be able to squeeze a few more in. There's quite a lot of questions here, so if we can't get round to all of them, we'll try and look at them separately and email people answers if we've got them. There's a question from Kevin in regards to online training. For the interventions, disengagements, holding skills, how is this going to be delivered online? Will a classroom element still be needed for this?
Yes, the online content doesn't include any physical skills at all. That's all taught in class.
Okay. And will the workbook still have the holding sections?
Yes, they do. For safety interventions, they don't have any holding sections, obviously, in verbal intervention.
Okay.
You see how mentioning time, Alison, has made us give, well, Marie always gives more succinct responses. I witter on, I think, at times, but let's try and get through some more.
I'm trying to whiz through these as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
There's there's about 80 questions still. But let's see if we can pick some others out that sort of cover a few options. Does the annual refresher still apply to staff who will be accessing courses with no physical interventions?
Annual refresher by the RRN standards only applies to programs that include a physical intervention portion on the program. So certainly, I think as an organizational decision, you could, if only teaching verbal interventions, move to a 24-month refresher. Okay. Similar to the renewal, right?
Okay, in terms of informing policy, can we begin the switchover of terminology?
Yes, certainly. From April, yes. There's no reason why you can't do that.
Will the pivotal programme still continue as a resource?
So again, with MAPA programs, if you've still got the resources available, you can still continue to teach it for as long as you want to teach it. If we've got stocks of workbooks and you want to purchase those workbooks, then that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Is there a combined instructor guide if you need to teach the child and adult content?
There is no combined instructor guide. However, the content of the instructor guide is actually, for both versions, is exactly the same. The only difference is the scenarios are different, and the pictures for adults will be of adults, and the pictures obviously in the children's version are of children, but there isn't any significant content difference between both instructor guides.
Okay, and Amanda's put in the question. Thanks, Amanda. She's spoken to the tech team, and they've said it'll be resolved soon, the issue with accessing the various materials, because a few people have clearly gone on straight away to check. But yeah, that'll be
gold star for that and updating everybody.
Let's have a quick look, see if there's one more we can address. Are there two books for CPI Safety Intervention, Foundation and Refresher, please, as it was for MAPA?
Do you want to do that one, Chris?
Oh, no, I'm happy for you to. I mean, the quick answer is that we have simplified all our resources. So the safety intervention workbook is the same workbook for initial training as well as refresher training.
Okay, and someone's just clarifying, would an adult is an adult class is over 18, we have children from P1 to S6.
Generally, we would class an adult is 18 or over.
Okay, and I'm just conscious of time, so I think if there's any others that we've got here that we can go through and provide answers to, we can have a look at those and add them to the email that we'll send out with the recording. And hopefully we've covered the majority of what the general, what people want to hear. So
there's a quick one I've just seen, Alison, which talks about delivering MAPA in a children's care home, and is the children's single person hold no longer taught? It is taught in the foundation version for children, working with children and young people, so that hasn't changed. Okay.
So I guess just to say to everybody, thank you very much for attending. We hope that it's been useful. As Alison has said, she'll send some links along with the recording out to you and some of the pieces that we might have mentioned. Again, just so that everybody is clear, there is a technical issue going on with the My Account area, but that will be sorted in the next hour or so. So please bear with us on that. It's been really nice to talk to you again as certified instructors. I feel I haven't spoken to any of you for over a year, so that's been a real treat. And hopefully very soon you'll be able to talk back to us as well. Maria?
Yes, it's been lovely to get back in touch with certified instructors again and update you really on the exciting developments of our new programme. Chris and I think it's the best that it's been, and we're really excited about rolling it out. So thank you.
Absolutely. Alison, last words.
Thank you all. We'll be in touch next week with the recording. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye to everybody. Stay safe.